So the company calls it unlimited paid time off, but every request turns into a loyalty test. Is it still a benefit if using it makes you look guilty?
If your rest means the team eats your unfinished work during a sprint week, you are not claiming a benefit. You are handing your cost to Coolwork.
Both of you are arguing inside the trap. The policy sells freedom, the manager sells guilt, and the team becomes the collection agency.
That is the part that bothers me. Nobody says no. They just make the yes feel so expensive that you cancel yourself.
Let us make the scene plain. The team is behind, the deadline is Friday, and you request 3 days off because your body finally hit the wall.
Yes, because waiting until the team is calm means never resting. In these offices, there is always a launch, a client issue, or a surprise emergency. The problem is not one busy week, it is the way every week is described as exceptional until rest becomes socially impossible.
That sounds noble until the analyst next to you inherits your tickets and stays online past dinner while you are hiking with no signal.
The company designed the staffing plan, not me. If one person taking 3 days breaks the schedule, that is not my selfishness. That is thin staffing with a prettier name.
What makes this policy powerful is that it never states the real limit. The limit is whatever amount of absence still lets everyone call you committed.
And coworkers are not imaginary. When someone disappears during a crunch, the remaining people are asked to be graceful while quietly absorbing the damage.
I care about that. But guilt cannot be the scheduling system. If the only way to protect co-workers is self-denial, the company has outsourced management to shade. That means the policy teaches workers to read the mood of the room instead of reading the written benefits.
So the question is not whether rest matters. The question is who is forced to negotiate rest through facial expressions, size, and co-worker resentment.
A benefit should be usable without a courtroom in your stomach. If the company advertises unlimited paid time off, then asking for time should not feel like a confession. Otherwise, the benefit exists as recruitment language, not as a live protection when a person is exhausted.
But unlimited does not mean consequence-free. If you know the sprint is fragile and still leave, you are choosing personal relief over shared responsibility.
That phrase is exactly how companies make workers police each other. Shared responsibility becomes the leash that keeps everyone available all the time.
Maybe it is just adulthood. Your choices affect people. A team is not a vending machine where you insert policy language and receive guilt-free absence.
Notice how the company vanished from that sentence. The manager created the plan, sold the perk, approved the staffing, and somehow the worker became the villain.
Exactly. The side is not innocent. He says, go ahead, but understand that your rest will be remembered when commitment is judged later.
I still cannot ignore the teammate who gets crushed. Systems are real, but so is the person who loses their evening because you needed a clean conscience.
Then the demand should go upward. Ask why there is no backup plan, no real coverage rule, and no minimum rest expectation that managers must defend. That demand should be documented so the staffing gap cannot hide inside a worker private guilt.
The United States office culture often treats paid leave as permission rather than entitlement. That matters because permission can be withdrawn without changing the policy.
There is also trust. If people believe someone is using flexible leave to dodge hard weeks, resentment does not come from nowhere.
Trust collapses because the rule is blurry. A fixed number of days may be less glamorous, but at least everyone can see the boundary.
So you would rather have a smaller guaranteed benefit than a larger vague one?
Yes. A vague unlimited promise lets the bold take leave, the anxious overwork, and the manager praise whoever guesses the hidden rule correctly. The anxious worker becomes the safest source of unpaid resilience because they are easiest to shame into staying.
That is why the policy can look generous in recruiting and feel punitive in daily life. The advertisement is public, but the punishment is private.
Still, if everyone takes leave whenever they feel strained, the people without family support, savings, or bargaining power may carry more of the chaos.
That is why I do not want private heroism. I want a rule that protects rest and coverage together, so the weakest person is not asked to be the cushion. A decent system would protect the person taking leave and the person left behind at the same time.
Maybe the moral question is not, should you withdraw the request? It is, why does the request expose the whole team as underbuilt?
I can accept that. But the worker still has a life choice. On the day of the request, someone either absorbs the work or they do not.
The leave choice is real. But if every worker solves it alone, the most conscientious people become permanently available and call that kindness.
And the least conscientious people exploit the same language. They call every absence self-care, then leave the careful people cleaning up the mess.
Both outcomes come from the same design flaw. When the limit is invisible, every request becomes a character trial instead of a scheduling decision. Once character becomes the battleground, no amount of policy language can tell people what is actually safe to use.
Why should my manager get to turn a health boundary into evidence about my loyalty?
Why should your teammate get no say when your boundary lands on their desk?
They should have a say about coverage, not veto power over rest. A humane workplace separates the need to recover from the plan to distribute work.
That sounds fair, but most teams do not live inside humane design. They live inside Monday morning, missed handoffs, and a manager asking who can cover.
And the policy needs guardrails. Minimum expected vacation, visible coverage rotation, manager-owned handoff planning, and no punishment hidden inside performance language. Without those guardrails, unlimited language becomes a personality test disguised as flexibility.
Yes, make the minimum visible. If everyone is expected to take real rest, then the person who requests it is no longer acting like an exception.
And make coverage visible too. If tasks are covered by rotation, the person leaving is not secretly choosing who suffers.
Strange how the impossible moral dilemma becomes less dramatic once management has to do management.
But until that exists, I still think withdrawing the request rewards the wrong system. It teaches the manager the sides are cheaper than staffing.
And I think ignoring the team teaches a different wrong lesson. It says the only moral actor is the person requesting rest while everyone else becomes scenery.
Maybe the honest move is neither silent withdrawal nor triumphant absence. It is a written handoff, an explicit escalation, and a refusal to absorb guilt alone. That move keeps compassion for the team while refusing to make private guilt the whole operating system.
So the request becomes a boundary plus a record. I am taking leave. Here is what is covered, here is what is at risk, and here is what management must decide.
That would make it harder to pretend the coworker is the enemy. The uncovered work would have an owner, and that owner would not automatically be the next desk over.
This is the deeper trap. Unlimited language individualizes rest, while sprint culture collectivizes the penalty.
Then I will not apologize for needing rest. I will apologize only for sloppy handoff, missing notice, or pretending my choice has no effect.
So if the request is documented, coverage is visible, and risk is escalated, you would still take the time during sprint week?
Yes, if the need is real. Rest that exists only when nobody is inconvenienced is not a benefit. It is decoration on a burnout machine.
I still think the team deserves more than a principle. They deserve a handoff that respects their evenings, not just a speech about corporate responsibility.
Then the real standard is sharper than either slogan. Take the leave without worshipping guilt, and plan the handoff without pretending co-workers are disposable. The standard has to honor recovery as real and coverage as real, because pretending either side is fake recreates the trap.
The uncomfortable part is that a decent worker can still be punished by an indecent design. That is why private virtue cannot fix this policy alone.
And a bad design can still create real victims on a team. That is why calling it my benefit does not end the moral conversation.
So when the manager sighs and says everyone is working late, is that information manipulation or confession that the company sold rest it never staffed? That is why the final question belongs on the manager desk, not only inside the worker conscience.